At the time of this recording, I've watched this week's episode of Moon Knight 3 times. I tend to watch each episode more than once in preparation to moderate this show, but in this case, I watched it multiple times to be sure that I'd seen what I'd seen. I think that this week's episode of Moon Knight is arguably the genre operating at its full potential. Asylum is what it looks like when creators take the leap of faith and fully commit themselves to the material, as absurd as that material may seem at times. With this episode of Moon Knight, the show has gone from being a curiosity amongst the Disney Plus shows to something that feels important. The series is proving to be just as surreal and thought-provoking as the comic book series it's based on. But I'm not here to review this episode. I will leave that to people who are more qualified. My name is Lord Deathman, and this is the review of Champions. Before we set sail on the Sea of Souls, please note that there will be spoilers in this conversation. Also, if you like what we do, please feel free to hit that subscribe and like button. Both actions help this show tremendously. So I'm going to do some introductions to bring in the panel today to see who's in the arena, and then we're going to deep dive into a discussion of episode 5 of Moon Knight Asylum. We have in the arena today, Taylor, how are you doing?
Doing great, thanks.
Right on. Grandmaster?
I'm doing great.
All right. Biz?
Yeah, I'm doing fine. Hi, everyone.
And last but not least, we also have Lokismom on audio only. How you feeling today?
Oh, I'm feeling wonderful, Lord Deathman.
Outstanding. Well, with introductions out of the way, I'd like to just go around the table and get your quick impressions on episode 5. Obviously, I was fairly impressed with it, but I'd like to start with you, Taylor. What's your quick and spiciest take on this episode?
I don't really have a whole lot to say about this episode. It was beautifully executed from a technical standpoint. It gave us some background information. Now, whether we can take it at face value or not at this point, I'm not 100% sure, but for the sake of discussion, if we take what we saw there as at face value, it definitely gave us some background information that we've all been wondering about, and it definitely set up an amazing finale. I don't know if the finale is going to be 2 hours long or what, but there's a lot that's going to have to happen. So overall, pleased.
Solid effort. Yeah, I could agree with you on all of that. I do feel like this episode did take it a little bit further than what we've seen before in terms of exploring the nature of the family traumas that Mark has had. This really feels like the origin story for Moon Knight that we haven't quite seen yet since the series started. Would you agree, Taylor?
Oh, yes, we definitely got a lot of origin information about Moon Knight himself, as well as Mark and Steven. Yeah.
But moving right along, Grandmaster, what was your initial impression of this episode?
I'm going back a year. WandaVision episode 8, up until now, one of my absolute favorite episodes of Disney Plus Marvel Studios television. And this episode surpassed that. It was absolutely amazing. And actually, it had the same structure as that before said episode. So going back in time to see the background story and see what happened up until that point. And yeah, we got a little bit more. We got drama, we got humor, we got everything. Great, some action even. What's not to love? You asked me when we recorded our first episode review how I would rank this show among the other shows or among in the complete MCU. I'm not there yet, but I'm starting to believe that this may be the best Marvel Studios has ever done. This is on so many levels so great, and I was really impressed.
Yeah. And it's even more impressive when you think about the fact that this show was called Moon Knight, but we didn't get quite a lot of Moon Knight in this episode. So the fact that they're giving us some genre tropes, but really this is really a dramatic presentation now. I think we saw Moon Knight for all of 2 seconds when he was at an altar, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And the rest of the series was dedicated to the personalities. So I think that's quite a feat in terms of elevating the genre, which is, the source of my high praise at the top of the show. So when your show can withstand not having its title character in it, you're onto something at the very
For
least.
For 2
there.
episodes already, if I may interject.
Yeah.
In the last episode, we also didn't get any Moon Knight beside a little puppet in the hand of Stephen or Mark in the Asylum. So for 2 episodes now, we haven't seen Moon Knight. So yeah, and still, I think it's among the best Marvel Studios has ever done. So that says a lot.
All right. And Biz, I know it's the top of the morning in the land down under. I love that moonlit background, by the way. But give us your hot take on this episode. What'd you think?
Yeah, I have to agree with Grandmaster. It was an excellent episode. It was like top tier. Yeah, it's just interesting because now that they've revealed so much about the character of Moon Knight, I was expecting that more maybe in the finale. So I'm wondering what they'll have in store for us. Yeah, so it's but it was an all-around great episode. That's all I'll say about this. There's nothing really that like I know we usually have like some kind of like a criticism part, but yeah, almost flawless.
Yeah. I would say almost flawless too. There is one thing that kind of I don't want to say that I'm calling this a criticism of the show, but I do want to circle back to Towerette, that character, in terms of how she's portrayed and the choices Disney made with the animation and the vocalization there. Maybe that'll come up later on in the discussion. But thank you for that quick take on the episode. And certainly last but not least, once again, we have Loki's mom. How did you feel about this episode, not necessarily being, all that familiar with the comic book material on Moon Knight?
Well, you said that they were playing with the genre or taking the genre to a different level, and there was early on where Dr. Harrow is, and I believe it's the mark when he has the bloodied nose where he's been fighting or whatever, and he sort of he comes back into the doctor's office, and he says, starts explaining to him, "You're this, you're that. Now, is it sense or nonsense?" Well,
right.
It would be nonsense if we were not talking about Marvel Comics here. So, I mean, to me, it makes more sense that he is Moon Knight, that all this stuff he is multiple, somehow he has got several people inside him, all the comic book trope things that you can imagine. That's what makes sense rather than what this man's going through. And then I think, secondly, I guess it's the Freudian aspect of it, the issue he had with his mother, the death of his younger brother, and then his mother blaming him for it, and just apparently she was very abusive to him, physically abusive to him after that. So yeah, it touches on a lot of psychological issues, and yeah, I was very impressed with it. I think it's certainly the best episode of the series. It's hard to say, is it the best one I've seen. I'm also watching this concurrently with a TV show called Better Call Saul, which probably some of the best television they're making out there right now. So and it stands up to it. Moon Knight stands up to that. So yeah, really good episode.
Yeah. I mean, when we first started on this journey with Moon Knight, a lot of the fans who weren't familiar with the character said, why Moon Knight, right? Like, why this character of all characters? Do you feel like as of episode 5, we've sufficiently answered what makes Moon Knight so compelling to justify this adaptation?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah, very compelling, and like I said, a lot of that has to do, it has to do with the writing. Absolutely. They've got a really good team. I think it's the same team that's getting ready to do the next Loki season. So that's going to be interesting to anticipate that. But yeah, what was the question again? What was the first part of the question?
Really, does this episode justify the idea that a Moon Knight series deserve to be made.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, like I said, it's the writing. It's also the actor that's doing this right now. I mean, he brings probably about, I'd say, 65% to this whole thing right here.
Yeah. The
Yeah,
performances are just beyond reproach.
I would say Oscar Isaac is the best so far actor in the Marvel verse.
Uh-oh.
Package
There's
stuff,
some Wanda stands that are doxing you at this very moment.
Probably.
But thank you for that. Thank you for your quick take on the episode. Well, we've got our quick takes from the panel, but now I want to do a deep dive, sort of go into an in-depth review, go around the table, talk to each panelist, each champion, and find out where were your high points in this episode and any low points that you might have had. It doesn't sound like we have a lot to say in terms of criticism of the episode, but there was definitely a lot to love. So I'm going to start with Grandmaster. Talk to us. What really stood out to you from this episode?
I would say the drama. What happened to Mark and his brother, and the reaction of his mother to that. I must admit, I was really compelled by the drama, and I moved my to the edge of my seat when I was watching it, and it sucked me in, and I really felt for the guy, and it showed Mark to be a tragic figure, and his father is maybe even more so, because he lost two sons that day, and it's that really stood out, and that level of depth, and that elevated the show to the height that it has, and of course Oscar Isaac's performance is a major part in that, but a lot of credit to the young boy who played young Mark in this episode, and the young man actually was also for a brief moment there, but he was also great.
That was Carlos S. Sanchez, by the way, as young Mark.
Yeah, well, brilliant performance, and there were. I agree that the hippo came across as a bit silly at the end of episode 4. Such a big creature with then like a woman's voice. Hi there, it was a bit odd.
It does feel like it comes out of the Disney playbook. There's a cartoonish feeling to the character. I don't want to get overly critical about it, but she's certainly not the gothic haunting figure of Khonshu. She's in a different category as a character, but no less entertaining. I would venture.
On the other hand, if it's a realistic depiction of the goddess, who are we to criticize Marvel for doing it like this, or Disney? I can see where people come from, but I wasn't too bothered by the
Towerette as a Valley girl. No problem.
Not at all. And one thing that's of course stood out to me was the moment the scale balanced on the boat, where Stephen was lost, apparently. I don't know if it means that Mark is cured and healed inside. I hope so. The guy deserves a break. Stephen has served his purpose, and I hope Mark can now come back to the land of the living and become the real protector of those who travel at night.
Yeah, which is all of us. No, some of us don't travel at night. But thank you for that, Grandmaster. Biz, I could see you chomping at the bit down there to sort of get in your hot take about this episode. Tell me, what is it that you liked about this episode, and was there anything that you might have disliked?
Yeah, I didn't really have a problem with the hippo until you guys mentioned it, but I suppose I can see it in that point of view. Like the hippo was a bit like bubbly and that like and then it's meant to be like a deity. So, but yeah, it didn't really bother me. Like I guess you could say it was a little bit cartoony, and then Disney wants to maybe sell a toy possibly. But like yeah,
Get your Towerette action figure with two hearts
like
and a
Hot
feather.
Toy or something. Yeah.
Hot Toys doing it. That would be incredible if Hot Toys did a Towerette figure. I might buy it.
Yeah, but yeah, it didn't really bother me too much. I mean, like the overall like story was awesome. So that didn't really it was like more of like a side thing. But yeah, anyway, with the overall story, it was great. It was like Grandmaster said, it was like very dramatic. Like they brought it up to like a level like 9, almost like a 10. Yeah, you could definitely empathize with the character, and now it seems like it might be like the mystery's over. It's like because we thought there might have been a third like alter ego. Is it still a possibility? Like where does it leave us in the
Right.
finale?
We're still
Because
waiting, right, to see if there are more personalities that will emerge.
exactly. So and also Moon Knight is trippy. Like is there going to be more in it? Like I know, like for example, in this I'll go back to my high school days, but I remember my English teacher said that when writing an essay, don't introduce anything new in the conclusion. So I'm thinking like, I know this is MCU and this is kind of like fantasy and Marvel, so there could be something like technically new in the finale, but there wouldn't be something like majorly new, like that takes like half an hour of the episode. That'd be a bit silly. It's not like this is like Loki or something, but um, so yeah, it'll be interesting where they take us in the finale. Obviously, they'll have to deal with the clash with the big bad. I mean, Arthur. I keep forgetting his name. Arthur Harrow or whatever his name is.
Harrow.
Yeah, there we go. Okay. But yeah, like it seems like they finished up the mystery with the Moon Knight character. But we'll see. Yeah, but the overall great episode. The drama was there, the tension was there. We got a bit of the obviously more of the Egyptian afterlife, like how that went about. Um, but what Grandmaster touched on again with is his personality, like identity crisis over? Is there still more to be done? Like it seems like because like he just pushed off the boat and then and then he had some peace with the wheat field. But yeah, I really have no real criticism. Like if you didn't mention Hippo, I wouldn't have even thought of it. So yeah.
And in all fairness, I think the actress who voices Towerette does manage to catch the dramatic beats. Antonia Salib is her name, and she doesn't undercut the drama of the episode. So I hesitate to make it a big deal, but I always like to point it out when Disney likes to do a really big caricature animal CGI type thing. That's just their trademark. But thank you so much for your commentary on that. I also want to add some notes to what you're saying in that those child actors were probably the best. Randall Spector and young Mark Spector, probably the best child actors I've seen in a little while, especially with the switch to the personalities that young Mark Spector had to do in the bedroom. That was a bit of work there. But thanks again, Biz. And moving on to Taylor. Let's get your highs and lows for the episode. Anything you disagree with that the panel's been talking about so far?
Well, the absolute best thing was the hippo. There's no doubt about that.
Oh, that settles that debate.
Well, I heard they're planning a spin-off series of Towerette.
Yes. And it's going to cross over with Echo, I heard. Yeah.
And we're here for it.
Joining Agatha's series.
It was Towerette all along.
I really hope Brie Larson will cameo in all of it. Oh, sorry.
No, I had no problem with Taro at the hippo. In fact, my favorite parts of this episode was on the ship, going across the sea or sand or whatever it was, with the at some point the zombies were coming up on board, so we had a little bit of action fight scene there, and the exposition by the hippo for the most part, explaining what the situation is and with the scales and the temple or whatever it was they were heading towards. And it was all beautifully done. The special effects were all top notch.
Yeah.
So here's the thing with this genre and pulp in general. There's three things that have to be balanced: action, humor, and drama.
Right.
Sam Raimi is the master of balancing those three in perfect proportions. And I can go on for hours about Sam Raimi's. This episode was the drama portion of this series for the most, at least was the most emphasis on the drama part. Of the three, that's my least favorite part of the genre, is the drama part. Okay, there's nothing wrong with it. It's important. It's great. The acting was fantastic. I've really seen the tragic childhood trope enough times. Okay, I know it's got to be there. It's got to be there. Yes, everyone had a horrible.
But don't you think that there was a twist this time around, Taylor, in that we have the dissociative identity disorder used as a mechanism to cope with the childhood?
Well,
Did that feel new to you?
Yeah, well, that's a twist throughout the whole series and the whole character. I mean, that's kind of the character's thing, the character's twist that separates him from a lot of other things. So, I don't have any problem with this episode. I'm just saying that of the three parts that make the whole, I'm least interested in the drama, because I pretty much know what it's going to be. It's going to be freaking horrible, and everyone's eyes are going to well up and everything. Okay, fine. That part's done. Now can we get into some superheroes smashing into each other and stuff? Okay.
All right, let's get to the action.
Personally, personal preference is all it is. Nothing to complain about. All of the acting was fabulous. Again, I'm not 100% sure everything can be taken at face value. We don't know exactly what's real and what's not real at this point. I mean, I know that he was not actually in a mental asylum of any kind. No asylum looks like that.
Right.
All right. That was an illusion or something inside of his mind, a construct of whatever fantasy he had to create, or maybe Harrow was creating that to try to steer him away from getting the answers he was looking for, or to lock him into his own mind somehow, so he'd be out of the way. I don't know. Dr. Harrow seemed to have ulterior motives in the asylum, but I like the hippo. I'm not sure. Everybody likes to point the finger at Disney. Marvel was selling toys before Disney ever bought Marvel. They also selling, they had Rocket Raccoon and a whole bunch of other things before.
We're
Disney
all just taking our cues from the governor of Florida. Well, Disney has to be to blame for something.
Well, Disney has done
that was just a joke.
Disney's done a lot of things, good and bad, but I don't think Disney. I don't think Disney is that hands-on with Marvel. I think Disney is really happy with all the money that Marvel brings in and lets them make the decisions. I'm sure there's some guidance, but I don't think they're designing characters for Moon Knight. I just think they trust Feige.
That's fair. I think if the receipts are coming in, you're probably right, Taylor. Why would they stick their finger in that pie?
Exactly. As long as the green is flowing, I'm sure they're pretty happy with it. But those are my thoughts on the episode. Great, and I think it really, really got me anxious to see the finale. I cannot wait.
Yeah, same here. And everyone is wondering if they're going to stick the landing, but that's something we'll probably get to later on in the discussion. Last but certainly not least, in terms of your episode commentary, highs and lows, is Lokismom. What did you think stood out to you in terms of this episode? And was there anything about it that you didn't like? Where are you in the action drama, in Taylor's pyramid of his hierarchy, I should call it, of importance?
I totally agree. Taylor nailed, how the genre is structured. No low points, but so young Mark and his brother leave the backyard of downtown Chicago suburban home, and they're in some vast field. I'm fine. I don't think that field exists in Chicago. So,
right.
Anyway.
I'll take that bet. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it would have been a little bit more plot if they went down in a storm drain or something like that. They could have done the same drowning unless the cave itself is playing an important part, unless it's a Chekhov's gun itself. So we'll see. Talking about the hippo. Now she is what's her name again?
Tauret, if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Tauret. She is the Egyptian goddess of women and children and childbirth. So now remember, the person that's truly haunting Mark here is his mother. And there's one scene I do believe where she's screaming. There's a female that's screaming at him. I think it's his mother. And then suddenly it switches to the hippo. So keep that in mind. There's a mother connection with that hippo, which makes sense if you're talking about Egyptian mythology that's factoring into all these stories. Yeah, I think, what really stood out to me, I guess, is like I've already touched on a little bit, is this whole psychological issue, and that, like to say, going back to the sense, is it sense or nonsense? Well, it hadn't really been mentioned, but Mark's also living in a world. He's also had this humongous, if he is a mercenary in real life, then he's probably lived a horrible life. And all those people he saw in those rooms, for the people he's killed, that he's murdered, and, well, these were bad people, and and whatever, they deserve to die anyway, and stuff like. He sort of tried to brush it off that way. And no, that's not. Don't work that way. Superhero land, yes, they go out and they handle everything swiftly with massive and fantastical justice, but that's not how the real world works. So is Mark in the real world, our world, or is he still in Marvel world? So of course I think he's in Marvel world. I don't think they're not going to actually do that, expose Marvel to our reality, which quite frankly is just not that much further. Well,
it's not that entertaining. It's frustrating, but not so entertaining. So I'm taking it that you got a lot out of the layers in terms of the multiple realities of this episode.
Yeah, and what they're dealing with, and I think what they've been doing all along is trying to take these fantastical tropes, and they're trying to mirror what's going on in our own society right now. It's a lot of social commentary that goes on there. I'm not going to say it's political. It's not political. It's social. It's what culture. It's what we do culturally. It's what they're addressing.
Indeed, we're going to keep the culture wars out of the review of Champions, but that is worth noting that that is a concern for that corporation.
Well, I'm not talking about the Disney episode. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about and it's not Disney either. It's Marvel. It's what Marvel has been doing. It's what they're addressing. And it's when I say cultural and psychological, because I think we want to put our politics and everything on top of everything. But quite frankly, we're all these psychological animals that we're dealing with all these things that happen to us that make us the people we are. Like Harrow says at one point in several episodes ago, he says, you made me what I am. You directed me in this way. This is what you want. And Batman. I mean, my God, that's all Batman talks about. That's what he's turned into in the last few decades. Is this social commentary between, the amount of evil and monstrous people we are allowing to exist on our planet. And
there's a lot of interesting parallels between Moon Knight and Batman. Now that you mentioned that, Moon Knight feels like Batman if you pushed Batman to its extreme, right? Batman has this duality of personality, and Moon Knight literally has a dissociative identity disorder between his alias and his superhero identity. You take Batman, who has supernatural connotations, and Moon Knight literally is a supernatural figure. So very astute observation there.
And I'll add that Batman, the whole thing is that Batman existence is possible by these murderers that he is trying to fight. I mean, Batman wouldn't be Batman without the Joker. You know, I think that's, you know, there's symbiotic relationship between those characters. So anyway, I'll get off that subject. Y'all go into more lighter things now.
Yes, lighter things like our rating for this episode, everyone. And since we're here, we'll start with you, Lokismom, on a scale of 1 to 10 feathers. What do we think of episode 5 of Moon Knight, Asylum?
Yes, in honor of Lady Death Lady, it will be lovely 9 ostrich plumes.
Outstanding. Hopefully my heart will balance the scales and I can move on to Osiris's gate. Biz, how many tashes, as in mustaches, 1 out of 10, can you give episode 5 of Moon Knight?
Well, yeah, like I'll give it a 9.5. It was awesome. Great episode.
Yep. Held you the whole time?
Yep, definitely.
Indeed.
Very engaging.
Yeah, very engaging. Thanks for that. Grandmaster, how many unbalanced souls, 1 out of 10, can you give episode 5?
I'll give this episode 9 unbalanced souls out of 10. The 10th one I keep myself.
Indeed. Very wise. Got to keep something in your portfolio. And
Exactly.
Last, but certainly not least, we have Taylor. How many sand zombies can you give 1 out of 10 for episode 5?
I'm not counting sand zombies, but I'll go with 8 out of 10 hippopotami.
Ah, there we go. So we want more Towerette, Disney, if you're listening. We want more Towerette, please. The Towerette spinoff series, we want her avatar, the whole 9 yards. All right, but that closes out the review section of the Review of Champions here. If you're still listening, please stay tuned because we're about to move into the next segment of the show called Cannon Fodder.
Cannon Fodder,
where we pit the panel against the fandom in a deadly game of speculation. So we're going to take 3 of the hottest theories that are out there right now with regards to the series. We're at the penultimate episode, so obviously the speculation is drying up just a little bit, but we do have some interesting ideas, rumors, thoughts from the fandom, and we're going to ask the panel to give us a buy, hold, or sell rating on each of these wacky theories. I'm going to start the proceedings off with Grandmaster, and our first theory, Jake Lockley is turning out to be the Mephisto of Moon Knight. Every episode, we have calls for Jake Lockley to appear. What do you say? Will we finally meet the Jake Lockley personality in episode 6 of this show?
I'm starting to get the feeling they will hold this for a later moment, but I'm going to hold.
We're going to hold. Okay, a safe, wise choice on the part of the Grandmaster.
Yeah, it's just that I'm not too convinced that they will show it in episode 6, the finale, I should say. But I can't really rule it out either, so I'll hold.
Okay, we've got our first hold from the panel. Moving to you, Biz. Will we finally meet Jake Lockley in episode 6, or are we going to get Ralph Bonard here?
Yeah, I love it that we're never going to let Mephisto down here. So with Jake Lockley, it could be just simply like a fugue state, like he said in that episode. When they both don't realize what's going on, but it's interesting. They do it. It could be in the post-credit scene after the finale. I'm going to hold. It's hard to say.
Okay, we've got 2 holds. Moving on to you, Taylor. Do you think that we are going to get Bonard here, or is Jake Lockley going to appear in the final episode?
Well, I don't count post-credit scenes, but I mean, I'm going to hold. It's possible. Doesn't feel like it right now. I agree with Grandmaster. that it doesn't feel like they're going to introduce him at this point, but it is possible, so I'll hold.
Okay. All right. Loki's mom, it is up to you to break the hold streak. Now, I have to point out that we have heard Spectre slip into a New York accent occasionally. Some fans have been very astute listening to the audio tracks, and once or twice while talking to Dr. Harrow, we've heard a distinct third accent. Given that information, are you going to buy, hold, or sell on the idea that Jake Lockley will appear in the 6th and final episode of Moon Knight?
Well, I was going to buy before you gave me that information.
Uh-oh.
But now that's, oh yeah, I'm going to buy because he's already been present, in those particular scenes where Mark didn't do the killing and Steven didn't do the killing. Okay, who did the killing? And
All right, well,
a lot clearer. So yeah, I think definitely we'll see him.
The lady proves to be a lot less timid than the men on the panel. We have our first and only buy on today's first theory. Moving on to our second theory, which involves more Jake Lockley. And here's how it reads. Jake Lockley will free Khonshu and rescue both Mark and Steven from the fields of reeds and the Sea of Souls, respectively. It's going to be up to Jake Lockley to not only make an appearance, but he's going to be the one to free Khonshu so that we can get a third iteration of Moon Knight, as in the id, super ego, and ego. Jake Lockley will have this is a all new Moon Knight uniform or costume or suit, if you want to call it that. And it's going to be Jake Lockley to the rescue. I'm going to start this round off with you, Biz. Are you ready to buy, hold, or sell on that fantastic fan theory?
Yeah, that does sound very
it's tasty,
awesome,
doesn't it? Sound it's there's a little morsel, little nugget in there.
It's hard. You know what? It sounds so crazy. I'm just gonna buy it. Whatever.
He's like, yeah, I'm gathering it on to me. I'm buying it. You know what? I support that decision. Go for the buy. Grandmaster, what do you think? Jake Lockley will free Khonshu and take on a new and third iteration of the Moon Knight.
I'm gonna sell this. I don't see that happening.
Okay.
No.
Jake might be more likely to stab Khonshu, right? To just knife him and say, dude.
Or just ride into the airport. That's a taxi driver.
Do we give Jake a tip? Does Khonshu tip? What do you think? Or is he his skin flint?
I don't think he tips. No
tip. It's just like umbrella in the rain, young man. Umbrella in the rain. There's your tip. Okay, moving on to Taylor. Are you ready to buy, hold, or sell on Jake Lockley not only freeing Khonshu, but also freeing Steve and freeing Mark and taking on a third and new iteration of the Moon Knight?
Okay, so this is one of those multi-part theories here. What if I want to buy one of them?
We can sell you fractional shares. Is there a part of this you want to buy? We'll put you on record.
Yeah, I'm going to sell. I'm going to sell because, unless there is a Nostradamus out there on the internet somewhere, there's no way all three of those things are going to happen. So the safe bet is to sell, because you can't, unless all three of those things happen, I was right to sell, right?
Indeed.
If he just appears and says, hi, my name's Jake, and nothing else, he doesn't free Khonshu and he doesn't free them and he doesn't turn into another Moon Knight, then I was right to sell, right?
Well, you're holding on that first theory in which he will appear, which is why we broke them into two.
Right,
so
yeah,
you're safe. Yep, you're safe in terms of... This one. Okay, we've got a hard sell coming from Taylor, folks out there in fandom land. So once again, we have to leave it to the lady to decide. Loki's mom, will you buy on the theory that Jake Lockley is going to free Khonshu, free his other personalities, and take on a new suit?
Well, predicated on that he's going to appear, which is what we addressed in the first tranche of theories. Yeah, well, I bought the first one, so I'm going to hold on this one because I think you're stretching it. You're complicating it It's more similar that he will.
It's not me. It's the
appear.
fandom. I'm only the messenger.
It's more probable that Jake, since he's already been talked about so much in the third person, I think he will appear in the final episode. But what will he freak behind you? Blah blah blah. I'm gonna hold on that.
Okay, we've got another hold here. So, ladies and gentlemen out there in the audience, the panel has spoken on theory number 2. Moving on to our third and final theory. This one, I am surprised that it got as much momentum as it did when I was checking out the social media feeds and all of the fan nerds on Reddit. But some fans, in fact, a large portion of the fandom, seems to believe that they are going to Newhart us in this series, and that the entire series is going to end as Mark Spector's hallucination. I'm going to start the proceedings off here with Taylor. Are you ready to buy, hold, or sell the idea that this entire series is going to turn out to be a hallucination of a madman sitting in an institution somewhere?
Right. The whole series of Newhart was a dream. The whole season of Dallas was a dream,
Right, was
and
a
Bobby
dream.
Ewing was actually alive because they finally worked out the contract and got Patrick Duffy to come back on the show. I don't think we have any of those issues. One, it's not a comedy like Newhart, and 2, there's no contract issues going on with Bobby Ewing. So I'm going to sell. I don't think the whole thing's going to be a dream. Parts of it might be a dream, but not the whole thing.
Indeed. I'm right there with you, Taylor. Moving on. Lokismom, we're going to give you a chance to jump into the fray early. I know you just gave us some speculation on that second theory, but is Moon Knight going to turn out to be, the events of the series Moon Knight, a hallucination happening to one Mark Spector, who is institutionalized?
I actually saw that episode of Newhart. I was there to be shocked by that. Of course, yeah, that's a hard one. I think I'm gonna sell that one. Yeah, I think that would be way too much of a contrivance. I mean, that would be like a sock in the face. Taylor's
Right,
it's gonna be. It's all part of a dream. I think. If we want to go back to the Loki series, remember there is a place that's mentioned by Mobius, the Nightmare Department.
Indeed.
Yeah. So this is all. I think this is all somehow. A lot of it is taking place in Mark's mind, but I think. Remember, we're still living in Marvelverse where Thanos where everybody just snapped back. That we're gone for 5 years, just snap back. So yeah. It's more plausible that all the crazy stuff and all the fantastical stuff is the real world.
Right. Of course.
He is Moon Knight. They're definitely Moon Knight is a reality.
Right, and not a hallucination.
Right.
Thank you for that, Lokismom. Insightful as always. Biz, are you going to buy, hold, or sell on this entire series being a hallucination had by Mark Spector?
Well, yeah, like I'm with you guys. Like, if it's like a hallucination, it kind of defeats the whole, I guess, purpose of the show and like what he went through, and like to have like pretty much our hearts wrenched from us because like the whole drama, like it was like full.
That's
going
to feel more like the rug
guys.
being pulled out from under us, right? He's
exactly.
He's not an innkeeper. He's a psychiatrist.
So I'd say, I mean, like if they're gonna go like, for example, like I could see if they do it like as a cliffhanger kind of thing, like Inception with the top spinning, and then there's like, oh no, it was actually real like afterwards. But yeah, you know what? I'll go with that because Moon Knight, like if you read the comic by Jeff Lemire, I mean, it's they could go that route.
I have, and there were a couple of issues where they kept us sort of hanging on the line that he was just crazy, and I was like, is this really the reintroduction of Moon Knight is just an asylum patient?
Exactly.
So am I hearing a buy there, Biz?
You're hearing a hold.
Okay. Yeah. I'm hearing a hold because you've been wild with the spending today. No, I'm just kidding. But we have a hold on the panel. You heard it right here first. Review of Champions. Grandmaster, here you are to follow up on what's been said so far. And also, if I could have your rating on this particular theory, that would be great.
Well, I hope the theory is not true. I really, really hope it's not true. So I'm going to sell this. Maybe it's more a wish sell than I actually think it's a sell. Should be a sell, if you know what I mean. But no, this is not happening. Like Lokismom said, Moon Knight is a reality. And my follow-up is also a little bit about what Lokismom said. She said that we are living in a reality in the MCU where people got snapped away for 5 years. I still think, actually, based on that cell phone, that this is way before everything we saw in the MCU. This is set in the zeros before Iron Man. Because who has flip phones nowadays? I know burner phones and stuff like that, but I still believe this is set in the zeros.
Okay, well, you heard it here. Grandmaster is giving us a hard sell on this particular theory, and that wraps up this week's edition of Cannon Fodder. Of course, we're going to backtrack and take a look at how the panel, did we win against the fandom? How did the champions do so far? But we've had a very, very entertaining round, and I want to thank the champions for that. Now, finally on the show, I'd like to just turn to each of the panelists and ask them a question about the show and sort of get their take on the various aspects of the show and get an idea, a deep dive on one particular topic. We call this the lightning round. And I'm going to start with Taylor. Taylor, what is the significance of a fish that only has one fin? We've seen that in the first episode, and then now we're revisiting it here with Randall Spector's obsession, who draws a fish that only has one fin. Are you thinking that has some significance in the show?
Well, that's Disney all the way. That's Nemo.
That was a product placement to go see Finding Nemo. I could get with that.
Yeah, refresh my memory. I remember someone saying who draws a fish with one fin. That was in the Asylum illusion, right?
Yes, that is actually when they go through a door into Mark's childhood, and he's there with his brother. I think they're outdoors. There's like a family activity going on, and Randall is drawing a picture of a fish, and his brother chides him about that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that's a really tough one, actually, because a lot of the stuff in the Asylum was things that we had seen outside prior. Virtually everything was, from cupcakes to Steven's boss was sitting there and so on. So it might have just been a reference to something we'd seen earlier that is a product of their collective brains, or Steven's brains, or one or the other. As far as is there any specific significance to a fish with one fin, I don't think so. I think it was just a reference to their life, their previous life.
Some memory spillage.
I think so.
Yeah, sometimes a fish with one fin is just a fish with one fin. I totally get it.
What if it's a fish called Wanda?
Fish called Wanda.
Or I went through the desert with a fish with one fin.
There we go. We've got a melody. We can set it to music, guys. Grandmaster, moving on to you for the next question in the lightning round. I think we've seen an unprecedented amount of dead people in this Disney Plus series. We have a superhero who is really unafraid of that final solution in terms of violence at the behest of his master, Khonshu. Does this signal to you that Disney is ready to take that step into a darker place with regards to the genre, or did this just feel like your typical Disney Plus fare? We've got a lot of bodies, a lot of red on Mark Spector's ledger. Khonshu has no problem with lethal force, and we even see visually some of the those are some, I would hesitate to say, scary looking, zombies or apparitions of dead people. Are we moving into a new level of maturity and sophistication with Disney Plus?
Yeah, that could very well be the case. I think this is also the first show that is not, in my country at least, that is not rated for people over the age of 12, but actually it's rated for people over the age of 16, I believe. So it's they're definitely moving into a more mature direction. They also announced the Deadpool project, Deadpool 3, that will be R-rated. They moved the former Netflix shows to Disney Plus. So yeah, they're opening up that corner. Absolutely.
Indeed. So is this something that you're for or against with the shows?
I don't care. I'm an adult. I don't care about ratings. I just want good content. And R rating or PG-13, I believe it is in America. There's hardly any difference anyway. And if you're an adult, you don't care about gore or nudity. You just want good content.
A good story.
Yeah.
A good story, regardless of
character development. Good story. That's important. I don't care about the rest.
Yeah.
This is window dressing.
And Biz, you had a follow-up on this.
Yeah, just like to touch on that, like for example, like Disney did have like Touchstone Pictures. Like I'm not sure if that's still active, but yeah, they have done mature like stuff in the past, even though people might not have necessarily known about that about Disney. Also, they owned Miramax briefly for
Buena Vista. They've had a couple of labels which they produce adult content under, and just said, look, we had nothing to do with it. Mickey is not on this. He's not in this.
Yeah, that's right. And then also with Hulu, obviously, and then Fox, they've got that. So yeah, they're definitely branching out now. That's all I like. That's all I'd like to say. That's it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, while we have you, the next question in the lightning round goes to you. A lot of fans have been waiting for the moment in which you would legitimately see the birth of Moon Knight, the origin of Moon Knight, if you will, and it happened in this episode. We have an injured Mark Spector crawling to the temple and there at the foot of the altar of Khonshu. Do you think they did that moment justice as a comic book reader? Did it feel like, oh wow, that this was the payoff I've been waiting for?
Honestly, I don't really have any real thoughts on that. I thought it was done fine, I guess. It wasn't like too
Do you feel it wasn't memorable?
Yeah, I think they could have made it a little bit better, but the thing is like that whole, because the thing is it was kind of unfair to, I guess, put it in that episode too, because like with the whole drama and like you see the tragic backstory of Moon Knight. So it's kind of I think that, I mean, that obviously that was a major part of the episode overall. So that was like kind of like a side thing in a way, if you get my meaning on that.
I tend to agree with you. You know what? That's an interesting insight. They packed so much into this episode that it feels like, wow, putting that little bit in there as well. But panel for panel, it was really taken from some of the more recent comic books. And I just wanted to say that I appreciated that. Yeah,
it was fine. But yeah, like it's like you saw it was there, and that's how it felt for me. So yeah.
Yeah, they did justice to the idea that Khonshu is just a big troll. He's like, dude, that'd be such a waste, man. Why don't you come work for me? But that being said, thank you for that, Biz. Grandmaster, you had a follow-up to that?
Well, I had a follow-up to Touchstone Pictures that was defunct in 2017.
Ah, indeed. Okay. So, but yeah, it's not uncommon for Disney to come up with labels or brands to sort of hide some adult content. And I feel like I'm talking about like erotic movies here, but you guys know what I mean. Adult content.
Yeah, they have 20th Century Fox Studios now, or whatever it's called, 20th Century Studios to do that with. So it's basically the new Touchstone.
Thank you for that, Grandmaster. And last, but certainly not least, in the lightning round. We have Lokismom, and I have a question for you. A lot of the fans are chomping at the bit to see this season finale of Moon Knight. They have a lot of work to do in terms of wrapping up loose ends. There are a couple of reconciliations, some new characters that need to be introduced. We need to get to the defeating the villain. Do you think they're going to be able to stick the landing, as it were, based on our experience with some of these other Disney Plus shows, or are you a little doubtful about that? Do you have any feelings one way or the other?
Well, stick the landing. They've stuck every episode so far, so I'm going to go with, yeah, they'll probably do it. How, what they will address, what will they go back and address that we've seen so far, and make that what it was all about. I don't know. I have no clue how they're going to do that. Yeah, I think Champ, I think we're still waiting on his partner.
Yeah.
Flip phone, I think since they put that name in there. And I got the Arthur Harrow quote because I had written it down last time. And remember, your torment forged me. So your torment forged me is the torment is coming from the mother. So that is the central source of Mark's torments.
Now, who said that to who? Was that Harrow saying that to Khonshu when he was like a little guy, a little statue? Yeah, that's how you do it. If you want to troll the troll, you gotta wait till he can't say anything, and then you let him have it. That's how Harrow did it. But anything else to add? I'm going to take final notes and comments on the episode in general. Going once. Here we go. Lokismom. Go for it.
Another one thing. Yeah, I think going back talking about this, doing a deep dive into some real heavy issues. Yeah, they're absolutely doing it with this episode. That they haven't had a lot of blood and gore in it. I mean, doing it that way, which is fine. I'm okay with blood and gore. When it's put in the right movie and in the right setting, I'm no problem with it. I don't think they need it here. I think, like you say, probably they should do a little bit more action. I think this series has been a little less on the action side. It kind of matches Loki, that it really kind of gets into a lot more psychological and personality.
Right, it's more on the dramatic side. Yeah. But Loki had such fantastically realized settings, such beautiful set design, and it was really transportive. But that being said, I think that the call for blood and gore or increased violence is because Moon Knight is sort of the chosen one to open up the horror side of the Marvel, cinematic universe. We're looking at Moon Knight as that first opening salvo to characters like Blade, to characters like Werewolf by Night. We already got a Hellstrom series that everyone wants to forget that happened. So, I don't think people are calling for blood and guts and gore for no reason. It's just that's kind of a trope of the horror genre. And people are like, well, if Disney thinks that this is horror, then we might, all be in a little bit of trouble, depending on your perspective. I think they fixed that issue with this episode.
Well, talking about horror genre, you can have horror without the blood and gore and guts. I mean, how they did it for 50-some years in motion picture industry until Wes Craven and these guys started coming along.
That is true.
Yeah,
I saw Wolfman, the 1931, the other day, and I loved it. It's such a great movie.
One of the greatest horror movies is Rosemary's Baby. My gosh, there's very little blood and gore in that. Even just flashes of the devil, and yet it's such a terrifying movie. So yeah, I have no problem going to the horror. I hope they do go into the horror genre, but they don't have to. They don't have to do the cheap shot type with the Freddy mask and all that. Come on, please.
No Halloween Kills. We don't have to have people torn apart in creative ways.
So let's be more tasteful.
Indeed. Patiently waiting in the wings, Biz, you had a follow-up comment to our discussion.
Yeah, all I wanted to add was that, like in one of our previous recordings, that I'm really interested to see if that theory will pan out or not with gore coming into the finale and butchering some of the Egyptian
doing what's in the
dates.
name, right? Like the character has to do what's in the name. He has to butcher the Egyptian
Yeah.
pantheon. I'm kind of waiting to see how the fandom, if the panel or the fandom is going to win out on that one too. Yeah, thanks for reminding us of that one. That one was really good. A lot of fun. All right, guys, this has been a really, really stimulating discussion about an incredible episode of Moon Knight. We have taken our final comments. We've done cannon fodder. We've traversed the lightning round, and the champions remain supreme. We're going to close out this episode by saying that you can catch us on social media at Twitter, Instagram, and on Facebook. And you can also, if you feel so inclined, join us on the forum at sakar.freeforums.net. We want to hope you and all of yours are doing well. Stay safe.